Now, the port has been a great employer for many, many years, and they needed capital, an infusion of capital money from the state. And the state was putting funds in every year. It was important. And other things were going on at the time, dealing with leasing or changes to the port. One of the things that I was able to do was one year we allocated $10 million to buy a new crane, which would have helped create and preserve the jobs that we had there. When we went back the next year, we asked, when is our crane arriving? Well, they hadn't ordered the crane because they were hoping, the administration at the time, to sell the port or lease the port and use that money for something else. Well, it is the job of the state auditor to make sure that the money that is allocated by the General Assembly and signed into law in the budget bill by the governor goes to where it should go. So we need someone to keep an eye out for those things, because these are critically important decisions. And the money that's allocated needs to go to where it is supposed to go. And in this case, it would have helped create jobs sooner. I have a couple of guests today, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with, who are very involved in getting things done at the Port of Wilmington. I have Bill Ashe, who is the International Vice President and President of Local 1694, yes, and Kimoko Harris, who is with Local 1883. Yes. Okay. Over the past few years, we've seen a lot of changes at the port, and we now have a new company coming in to talk about what they can do with the Port of Wilmington to help preserve jobs and grow jobs. So I'd like to take some time now, the rest of the time we have here, to talk about that with the people who have been involved in making this happen. Now, a couple of years ago, there was a proposal to lease out the port. What we did not have back then, and I was involved with making sure that we had some of the things that we're seeing now, there was no transparency. There was no information provided to the public or to the folks who really need to be involved in that. This year is different. So I'd like to have Bill and Kimoko talk about some of the changes and some of the things that have happened.
Some of the changes that took place was, you're talking about Kinder Morgan. Kinder Morgan came in, we met with them twice. They never gave us answers to the questions now that we got all the answers to. Mm-hmm. Transparency, yeah. What's going on? There was an RFQ put out this time. So when you say transparency, we never looked at Kinder Morgan as a viable entity to come into the Port of Wilmington, even though people have said we was hoping that Kinder Morgan came. That's not true. We never vetted Kinder Morgan to come into the port. Gulf Tainer, on the other hand, has shown us every way. They have their books open. I've actually looked at their books, seen where they're very transparent. And I talked about it this morning, but I'm gonna talk about it again. The Republican representative from California did the same thing that he did in the paper here down in Cape Canaveral, tried to block, and the senators and the state reps from Florida said, never mind, we're gonna go forward because we're looking for the jobs. Right now, Gulf Tainer is in Cape Canaveral in Florida, and we just got in a document that Peter Riches said that he was signed to make that all union in Cape Canaveral. So I don't know what the problem is. Maybe I'm missing something, but you as a state auditor knows that we're talking about the $15 million that they give to the Port of Wilmington. That could be used for something else, along with the $13 million that they promised they were paid to the state. That's $28 million can go towards schools, helping kids, after school care, the DOT, whatever it may be used for. It's a win-win for the state of Delaware.
Right, and I think one of the really important things here is union jobs.
No question about it.
So my background, as you may know, my father was an operating engineer, my uncles, my cousins, and I helped pay for school as a member of Local 199.
Okay.
So the key to me, as it is to you, is that these need to be union jobs. And the union jobs are the most efficient and the safest jobs that we can have there. It provides a good living for people, so they can buy a house, right, so they can buy a car, so they can be a part of the community. And if it wasn't for growing up in a union household, I would not have had the opportunities that I have. So that's been one of the things that I have been so focused on making sure that that is part of any deal going forward.
And just to add another point, so, and Kimoko can speak, because I'll shut up. But we also visit with the farmers of Delaware. This is very crucial to them. They can ship grain out of the port of Wilmington if we get this passed through, rather than sending their grain to the Mississippi at a lower cost. They ship it out of Delaware, which is the cost might be higher, but that means that they're getting a return on the grain that they grow here in the state of Delaware versus shipping it to Mississippi or down Baltimore at a cheaper rate.
And just to add to that, and what my vice president is talking about is that we had contact with the National Farm Bureau, you know, from the Midwest, and a lot of the farmers from the Midwest, like he said, they ship their grain and their produce all the way down to the Mississippi and Louisiana Delta, you know, to ship it out. And when we first mentioned this, because we had some of the Farm Bureau people here in Delaware talk to those National Farm Bureau people in Illinois and that region, all out to Indiana, and they said they would be glad to, and definitely would ship their cargo, their produce and their grains out of Delaware. Number one, because it's closer, you know, it's easier to get to, you know, and that they would save money, you know, by doing that. You know, and another thing, when you're talking about jobs, and I think I want to expand on that a little bit, union jobs, we have an agreement with the Gulf Tanner, which was a part of the RFQ that the state presented, that this would be built by the union labor, which means that the building trades, construction trades would do the building of this. That means electricians, carpenters, you know, bricklayers, operating engineers, you know, all these folks would be working prior to us, the longshoremen, working, because once they fix it, they build it and get it done, then we go to work the ships that come in. Also with that, truckers, truck drivers. Yeah. I mean, on peak season at the Port of Wilmington, there's probably 1,000, and Jack can verify, over 1,000 truck moves a day.
Yes.
That's 1,000 truck drivers in the Port of Wilmington. Yes. Now, the Edgemore port, container port, will be 5 times larger and handle 5 times more cargo. So you're probably talking about 4,000 to 5,000 truck moves within a 24-hour period, and that's a lot of truck driving jobs, you know. Yeah. And so when we spoke about it earlier this morning in terms of the job that's going to be available, you know, to good paying working class jobs for our people, blue collar jobs. I mean, you're talking about CDL, people getting their CDL training. You're talking about people contacting the building trades in terms of their apprenticeship programs. You're talking about the ILA, in which we're getting applications now, filled, you know, for people to sign so they can begin to work with us, because we're going to need, we're going to need hundreds of people, you know, to fulfill the work demands that we're going to need just to have the port.
Right.
So,
and I think it's important to know too that it's the Port of Wilmington, but it affects all of Delaware.
yes.
No question.
Yeah.
And you know, I live near the Concord Mall, right off of Shipley Road in Ames, one end of Shipley Road.
Okay.
And a lot of times I would go all the way down Shipley Road, straight down to Edgemore, get on 495 there, drive by the port.
Right.
When I was in the General Assembly, I represented Claymont to the Concord Mall, so I had the steel plant there as well.
Right.
And we've lost so many blue-collar jobs over the past many years.
No question.
From the steel plant to Chrysler and General Motors. You know, one of my jobs when I was in the labor's union was working at Chrysler during one of those turnarounds.
Right.
Thousands of people, and those things are now gone. And this is really the biggest blue-collar workforce that we have in the state. And it's going to draw people from all around, from the city of Wilmington, but also from
It's going to
all
impact the
surrounding
region.
areas.
Yeah.
Yes.
The whole region, Maryland,
Yeah.
you know, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, it's all packed.
And it's a lot of union jobs, labor jobs.
Yes.
I know at the Chase Center when you were there last week, and I was
Yes.
I was there seeing all of the building trades. I
Oh,
mean, they
yes.
were all
Yes.
there, huge
Yes.
crowds. There were over 500 people, I think.
Oh, no question.
Yes,
And just to iterate on what Kimoko was talking about jobs, this is not only going to be blue collar, it's going to be white collar jobs.
Yeah.
People got to understand this would change the dynamics of Delaware and this whole region, because now you have a sustaining port that can go on its own and don't have to depend on anything. The revenue that it would generate would be astronomical for this region.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the map, it's a direct link to the Midwest. What better place to bring your cargo in here? I mean, everybody is already talking about it. We touched on this a little bit this morning, but everybody wants to know, is Wilmington for real this time?
Yeah.
Because the shipping lines, I have direct contact with Dave Adams, who's the head of USMX, and they are sitting back just waiting to see if we're gonna go forward or we're gonna do what we did in the past. And this has a complete turnaround as far as time from the ocean back to wherever these ships came from. We can turn them around, and we prove we can turn them around a lot faster than anybody on the East Coast. This changes the whole dynamics.
Yes. And there's going to be training, I think you've said, for
Yes,
some of the new
yes.
technology. But
Yes.
even with that new technology, we're not looking at automation.
No.
We're looking at using some technology to make things a little bit better. But along with that, there's going to be such an increase in volume that there's going to
Yes.
be a lot of jobs. And I've heard Kimoko talk about, and I've been talking about this too, not only the direct jobs with ILA, but the indirect jobs
No
of
question.
the construction and the induced jobs as well, because Governor Prince Boulevard, Philadelphia Pike, all those areas
Yes.
around, we're going to see more people and buying more houses and new businesses and restaurants
Yes.
and all of those things that go along with this.
It creates jobs for every aspect of the state, because look at the Wawa on 13. They would either have to double their capacity because it's too close to the port. So you can look at people working, even though it's open 24 hours, look at the truck stops on 95. You will have more traffic. It's going to create astronomical, the fuel that has to come in back and forth for truckers to buy. Whoever's got the fuel depot, it's going to create jobs for them. So as a tax base for the state of Delaware, and you're a math gentleman, Mr. Williams, you know this would change the whole dynamics of the state. Instead of the state having to look for money, they will have money that they can generate and do things for other people in the state, whether it's kids. To me, kids is my pride and joy. If you're taking care of the kids, then the rest of it take care of itself. So, and that's why we say this is the 28 million that I'm talking about is the 15 million that the bond bill give, 13 that Golf Tainer has signed and committed to give. That's 28 million. That's not counting the incentives that's in this agreement that they're going to get on top of that, the state will receive.
Right. I know at the time when I was in the legislature and we were looking at, I mean, there were people who said, oh, we don't want to give that, even that 10 or 15 million to the port. But we were generating at that level $27 million in tax revenue
Yes.
from the direct and the indirect jobs.
Right.
That's a lot of money.
Yes.
And so when we're looking at that much money coming into the state, it's important that we see that there'll be even more coming in from income taxes, from
No question
other things
about
like
it.
that, real estate transfer tax. It'll help the county as well.
It would just change so many things, and it would change so many people's lives. And here's the thing that I would tell any resident of Delaware. Think about your son or your grandson not having a job, that he can go and get a skill and have a job. Everybody's not going to college. This is my partner that says that all the time. Everybody is not
All
going
our
to college.
kids aren't going to go to college.
So
yes.
we give them an opportunity to go to work where they can make a decent living. Now, if they put that money back into the community, meaning a tax base, buying a home, buying a car, it changes everybody's lives, because now the car dealers selling more cars, the builders are building homes. Even if you are renting, you're paying your mortgage on time. You don't have to worry about the state giving you funding because you're going to get put out of your home or your apartment. It just changes everybody's life.
Yeah, and I think I keep coming back too to the fact that they are union jobs, because not only are they well-paying jobs, but you have the training. The other thing is safety, and I was thinking about this the other day. I actually work in Center City, Philadelphia. I'm the CFO of a nonprofit there. And I drive by a building every day. It's a hotel that's been under construction, renovation, by a non-union contractor.
Okay.
So it's been picketed a little bit. I stopped at the light the other day and I could see a couple of people working. They were cutting wood and some other things. No hard hat, no safety glasses, no hearing protection. None of these things that I always saw when I was working and when my father was working. So, you know, we have to look at making sure that our employees are safe, because not only is that something we should be doing,
No question.
but there's a cost savings there too. It's, you know, we'll be spending money on medical expenses and injuries, and we shouldn't be doing that. So,
Accidents go down.
Yes.
And we anyone that comes into the ILA, we have to give them a hazmat and a training class. If you don't have your safety equipment on, either your foreman or your superintendent tell you either get your safety gear or go home for the day. Simple as that.
yeah. I know in Sussex County, a few months ago, there was a county councilman trying to push right-to-work legislation. And because they see that as, oh, we're going to save all this money, we can pay people less. It's the right to
Right,
work for
yeah.
less.
Right.
But you also get the right to work with no safety and all
No
of those
benefits.
types of things. Or no
Exactly.
benefits.
Right.
And, you know, fortunately, labor got together
Yes.
and fought that.
Yes.
And it didn't pass. So hopefully that's just an issue that goes away. But that's an important thing as well, that we have to make sure. We need to make sure the message is out there. And that's one of the things that I try to talk about here and other places is it's not always a low bid, it's a low cost. And over the long run, if you do things right and you don't have those injuries and you're generating the tax money, it's a much lower cost
Oh,
to
no
the
question.
people of the
Yes.
state.
Yes.
Yeah.
Plus the stevedore saves, and that way he has incentive to give back to the men and women that are working for you. But you just touched on something. I would ask, whether you're a union or not, call your state rep, because it affects whether you're a union or not, your tax base. Because if the state can save money, your taxes might go down. Your property tax might go down. So I would tell any resident of the state of Delaware, call your state senator or your state rep and ask them how they voting on this, and if they're saying no, why? And tell them to give you a reason why they don't want this to go forward.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, there's no reason not to
I totally agree.
support this, especially because of the transparency.
Yes.
And that's been, that's one of the things I'm most proud of is pushing, changing things.
Yes.
The way we did things down there and the way
Right,
that
yes.
had been done in the past is back room and nobody knew what was going on. And even if it had been an okay deal, nobody knew if it was anyway. You don't want to vote on something not knowing what the details are.
I agree.
And you know, with these public meetings, with I guess they've posted the slideshow from that day on the port site now.
Yes.
All the legislators can see what the benefits are.
No
And
question about
like
it.
you said, it's important for everyone to call their legislators and let them know that they are
Exactly.
in favor of this,
Yes.
that it will
Exactly.
help.
And I just want to say one other thing. Thank you for letting us come on your show, but I also want to say thank you to both senators and our Congress lady for supporting this, because we did need help with the dredging as far as federal dollars, and,
Yes.
and they've done a tremendous job in helping us get this thing pushed to where it is today.
Yeah. That has been critical.
Yes, no
No.
question about it.
Now they should stop just north of Delaware so that no
Well,
one
we
can go
can't
up
say,
the
as a vice
I know,
president, I
I
can't
know.
say that.
I can't say that
Plus,
either,
plus,
but you know.
plus with the amount of ships that are going to come through the Panama and the Suez Canal, there's going to be enough work for everybody on this river.
Yes.
No question.
Everybody on this river. We just got to make sure that we have the infrastructure so we
Right.
get some.
Yes.
You know, because that's all we're doing. We want to get some of this work that's going to be coming up the river. Because right now, we see numerous ships sail past us every day,
Yeah.
going to Philadelphia and New Jersey. Why? Because we do not have a terminal on the river. We're still in 38 feet in the Christiana, which those ships cannot even get in there because they're too large.
Right.
So we sit there every day and watch these gigantic container ships ride past us every day. And that's what we're trying to stop.
Yes. Good.
You know, so that
And-
we'll have some stop at us.
And it's such an ideal location because of I-95
No question.
and 495 and the train. And I know I had some notes here on the Boxwood plant.
Yes.
That's another potential for more work, more
Oh, yes.
jobs.
Oh, yeah.
If they make that a staging area or some of the other things they want to do. You were talking about the farmers and bringing more exports
Yes.
here. But the other thing that this could do for Delaware is attract more manufacturers, light manufacturing
Yes.
that
Right.
we can do, because your shipping costs will be much less because you're right here.
Yes. When a ship comes into any port, it wants cargo going back out.
Yes.
Because then it saves some time going from a different port. If he can get loaded, we can unload cargo and load going back out. It saves the shipper and that line a lot of money just on fuel alone.
All right.
Yep.
Any other thoughts? Contacting your legislators, making sure that they know that this is good for everyone.
Yes, that's one of the main things, the messages we want to get across now, for everybody to contact their senators and their representatives and make sure that they're on board with this.
Okay.
And question them why not.
If they're
The
not,
bond
right.
bill, from my understanding, meets next Thursday
Okay.
and at 10 o'clock. So we'll be down in Dover, and hopefully, you know, they just do what the bond bill do and go ahead and move this to the Senate and the House and get this thing passed hopefully by the 30th so we can move it forward
Okay.
so it don't stall.
We want
Right.
to fast track this. We want this as soon ASAP. You know, it's
All
been
right.
long overdue.
It tells
Long
the shipping
overdue.
world something about Delaware,
Okay.
that we're for real, and you can come to Delaware and bring your vessels here, and we'll discharge them. And just as a closing note, we had a ship 2 weeks ago, a MS ship, and I said something about it this morning. We took 119 boxes off. They stripped out, and we put 109 back on 9.5 hours. They were looking for a day and a half to get that done.
Wow. Yeah. Doing a great job. Thank you for being here today and for being out there talking about this to
Thanks for
make sure
having us.
everyone knows
Thank you
the
for letting
importance
me.
of doing this.
Yes.
I'll be back in about a month to talk to you some more about issues affecting Delaware and how the state auditor can have an impact on this. Now, I like to talk about what can help the state in a variety of ways, but the primary job of the state auditor is to make sure that our financial statements are correct, to make sure that people have confidence so that when the state goes out to borrow money, because even if we're not having to put cash into the port, we still have roads to build and schools to build and other capital projects that we need to do to make Delaware attractive to businesses and to make it a great place for people to live. And it is important that people have confidence in the state, in what our finances are, that our budget is handled well, and that we have someone in that role with independence and integrity. And so I thank you for tuning in, and I thank my guests for being here today. I'll talk to you next month. Thank you.
Thank you.